Hey, how's it going on my non-existent YouTube followers? Well, I've decided that I'm going to start doing a build log on my car. I've posted up a couple of videos of it at the track and it idling and whatnot. Well, went out to the track, actually a little backstory on the car. So those videos that I posted up earlier on my YouTube channel were the couple of outings that I got to take it out to the track. It was a Vortec SI trim, supercharged 4.6. Never put it on the dyno, but I was guessing it was making high 400s, maybe 500 if I was lucky. Got it out to the track. Got a best time of a 7.49 with a 170 60 foot at 94 miles an hour, I think, which was decent, but it didn't seem quite right for the amount of power that I was supposed to be pushing. So needless to say, closed it out at the track that day. I got back to the track a couple more times, and the car just wasn't running right. It got slower and slower and slower. I think it went like 8.1 or something like that. I didn't really know what was wrong with it, but I noticed that the car didn't want to idle right. It kind of wanted to die at idle whenever it was warmed up. So I got it back to the house, got to tinkering around with it, realized that my blow-off slash bypass valve, I had plugged a hole in there that didn't need to be plugged, so the car was only making about 5 pounds of boost. Fixed that, took the car out, drove it around a little bit, did a good wide open throttle pull, and got to the stop sign and realized I had no oil pressure. So pulled the car in the garage, pulled the oil filter off, changed the oil. Oil had some metal shavings in it, not a good sign. Changed the oil, put a new oil filter on it, crunked the car a couple of times, still didn't have any oil pressure. Thought maybe it was the sensor for the oil pressure gauge in the car. Checked that out, it wasn't. I pulled the oil filter off and there was no oil in the new oil filter. So I knew it was time to pull the motor. Got the motor pulled the oil pan off, and there was a part of my thrust bearing in the bottom of the oil pan. The thrust bearing is the part of the bearing that goes in the bottom of the engine that stops the crank from moving forwards and backwards. Well, part of that bearing was in the bottom of the oil pan, and the other part of the bearing was almost non-existent because it was almost completely eaten away by the crankshaft. So the crankshaft was ruined, all that crap, and the short block was built by MMR, which in the past couple of years has not earned a very good name for themselves. So I just decided I was going to go ahead and ditch, pretty much everything out of that motor. The only thing I reused out of that engine was the rods because they were still good. So that kind of brings me to where the car is right now, and I'm gonna probably start at the front of the car and kind of work my way back, and then talk about some future plans with the car and what all I have in store for it. So we'll go ahead and get up and start at the front of the car. So as you can see, there's no engine in the car. Got the transmission cooler right here. You can see the tubular K-member in there. Probably dropped maybe 100 pounds off the front end. I've deleted the ABS. That's the ABS delete block right here. Probably dropped another 20 pounds off the front of the car. I've started to do a wire tuck in the engine bay. Used to be a fuse box and all kinds of wires and whatnot in this area, and they're all inside the fender now. You can see the front of the transmission right here. It's a 4R70W automatic transmission. It's a 3-speed with an overdrive. It's built to handle, the company that I bought it from claims it's built to handle 750 horsepower. It's got some upgraded clutch packs in it and a couple other goodies. I don't really know a whole lot about automatic transmissions. I just know it's got some pretty good stuff in it. You can see my fuel pressure regulator right there for my return style fuel system. Nothing really else to talk about up here. We'll go over here. I've got weld Pro Stars on the front and the back. The back are 26 inch by 10 point, I think it's actually a 26 by 11.5. Hoosier QuickTime Pros. They're a street legal drag tire. Right here you can see I've got the UPR adjustable coilovers with strange 10-way adjustable struts. Right there. Deleted front sway bar. You can see all the wires and stuff tucked in the fender. There's the fuse box. It's nothing really pretty to look at right now, but like I say, it's a work in progress. Stock brakes, nothing special there. I'll get under here and show you guys the bottom side of the transmission in the car. So I've got the extra deep aluminum trans pan on here. Stock drive shaft, no drive shaft safety loop yet, which I need actually. And then just on back, and you can see the cat back right there. On the inside of the car, I got a whole bunch of junk in here right now because the car's been sitting for a while. Right here, I've got some full-length subframe connectors that I'm going to have welded onto the car, and all those do is stiffen up the chassis of the car so it doesn't flex whenever you are putting a lot of power to the ground. Got the autometer, C2, boost gauge, and wideband right here. White face overlays on the dash. I forgot to say while I was up there, I also deleted the AC on this car since I don't really drive on the street that much anymore. I deleted the radio in the car, and I've got my two switches right here for overdrive and lockup on the transmission since it's running a manual valve body. And then I've got the temperature gauge right there, and then I went ahead and added a B&M ratchet shifter in the car. It's pretty cool. Click it back a couple of times. You just click it back to select the gears all the way back into first, and then just you push it forward to shift into first, second, third, and then you would go into flip this switch for overdrive, and then you can lock the torque converter up as well. Got my little wire coming out so I can data log and tune the car. Everything else inside the car is pretty much factory. I haven't done anything to lighten the car up as far as the interior goes. I go back here, get a good look at these Hoosier QuickTime Pros. Some pretty good tires, pretty sticky. Had no issues with them at the track, and I don't have the greatest suspension setup in the world. I'll go ahead and talk about the rear end and the suspension. It's got Mosier 31 spline axles. Go under the car. Under the car, it's got a Ford Racing differential cover. It adds a little bit of stability to the rear end. Strange 10-way adjustable shocks in the back. You can see the lower control arm right there. Those are Team Z double adjustable lower control arms. It still has the factory upper control arms, which is another upgrade I've got to get to. You can see the springs right here. It's got the E-Bach drag launch springs. The right spring over there actually has an airbag in it. So in theory, whenever the car launches, the torque's going to go to the right side of the car, and normally you would run what they call an anti-roll bar to keep the rear end straight under the car, but it's kind of a cheap alternative is that airbag in the right rear spring. You air that bag up and it stops the car from flexing all the way to the right, and it allows you to get a more even distribution of power to both the rear tires. So we'll go back out here. Oh yeah, and the catback on this car is a stainless steel systems catback, which I might be deleting in the future with the turbo going on. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Pretty loud exhaust. Definitely got a lot of attention driving around the road. So right there you can see my gas tank nothing special stock. But on the inside is where I've got let's see, my fuel system is two 255 liter per hour pumps running on the stock feed line, and then it's got a -6 return line. Fuel system's probably good to 650 horsepower on pump gas, which in the future I'm probably going to start running this car on E85, which I'm going to have to upgrade the fuel system to run, because it takes 30% more fuel to run E85 over regular pump gas. But what I do have on the car right now is I have what they call a methanol injection. I run a 50-50 mix of water and meth, and it's supposed to bump the octane rating. As a matter of fact, here's some jugs of it right here. They call it boost juice, but it's supposed to bump the compression up, or not the compression, but the octane rating up to 116, and it's just a nozzle that sprays into the intake, which is a pain in the butt to tune, but I digress. Over here on my shelf, I still got a bunch of my extra parts. Alright. Got the valve body out of the car right now. I was just checking it out, making sure that it was clean while the car was up. Wasn't nothing funky going on with it, because I thought maybe my transmission could have caused the thrust spring failure in my engine, but I'm starting to think that probably wasn't the issue. Probably going to send this thing off when I get the money and get a trans brake put on it. And then you can see I've got my billet-faced Circle D Specialties torque converter. It's supposed to stall to around 3,800 RPMs. I think I've seen it stall to about 4,000 probably, in that area. So, I mean, it's pretty much spot on. I was running the 6061 custom intake plenum, and then the Victor Jr. intake. There's my valve covers painted. And that's pretty much all I have right now for the car. I'm probably going to do another video and talk about the engine, which is right here on the stand. So stay tuned for that video. Out.